Hello and welcome back to the studio space. So glad to have you. Today we're going to take a look at September and maybe go through some of the things that I've been able to accomplish in here, and we're going to take a look at what's to come in October and gather up my list of to-dos. So firstly, I sculpted my own frame. Wow. First time for everything, I suppose. And I have some castings here, one of which has been painted and one of which is still blank. So these guys are all ready to be used. I feel like I should be putting a lobster or something into this one, you know? It's just so super red. And then this one is just blank white, which I could leave blank, but I have a feeling that I'm going to go ahead and paint this one as well, or at least put some accents of black in there or something. I'm not really sure what I'm going to be doing. One thing's for sure though, my next batch of resin will be a matte black, because I found that just working with matte black resins really seems to just yield a result that's just ready to go. Really no painting or embellishing required as long as the cast is clean. That matte black is a pretty good choice. Also, when I unmolded that frame, I was able to salvage the very internal perimeter of where the artwork goes, so I may just make a mold of this, and then maybe just once I have castings like the other ones, I can go ahead and sculpt little arms and attach little knickknacks and whatnot around it. So you know, this is a very simple little version of you know, the frame that I was just showing, but I think that there may be uses for it yet. More to come on that soon. I was able to knock out just a couple of smaller pieces this month, one of which being the one that I call Scary Thoughts with the red and green color scheme. I was able to cast a frame for that one as well, and I painted that one. It's pretty custom, but not quite as custom as a hand sculpted frame. Regardless, I thought it turned out pretty cool, and I have the other one here, which I'm thinking of calling This Is Maybe a Tree, because it might just be a tree. Not really too sure what this thing is, but if it were something, if I really had to put a label on it, I would probably just call it a tree. For those of you who have been following along, I do a lot of these pieces that I call duality pieces, where there's two halves of a subject, and you know, they have very conflicting emotions or color schemes, and you know, little items that go or throughout the piece. So this one is done for the most part. I already signed it and everything. I just need to seal it and then varnish it, and then I'm going to paint the frame black and maybe add a couple of arms to the edges here. I have a whole box of little things that I've sculpted in the past, and I could just attach them right to the frame, you know, maybe put one on each side and make this so that there's a little bit more of an interesting factor in the finished piece. But there's still a couple of steps to be done on this before it's finalized. Once it's varnished and, you know, all ready to go, I can think about how I'm going to attach these things, and then you know, maybe make a couple of small ornaments to hang from these little arms that I'm planning to attach to this frame. And here's what the piece looks like, all sculpted, sealed, and ready to go. So that's exciting. Really enthusiastic to be pumping out really small work to complement the really huge ones that take me forever to do. So, you know, that's always good. Next up, I had a show at Eclipse C3 Gallery here in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. The pieces that were in that show are great examples of what I mean by embellishing little arms and knickknacks that hang from the frames. I only got a couple of pictures from the night, but I did take a whole bunch of video of the main large piece, which was called Badass Nonsense. On the frame, I sculpted little arms and then attached them very permanently. Badass Nonsense was the first time I ever tried to sculpt arms or branches or whatever you want to call them and then hang little embellishments from them, and I'm happy to report that it turned out to be a massive success because I took it when it was done and I curled it by the arms just to make sure that it was good to go, which it was, thank the Lord. So feeling pretty secure about that whole process. So that's kind of an all-around new thing with me sculpting these little frames and embellishments and whatnot. Very cool, really excited to see where it goes. I'm still kind of just fumbling around in the dark when it comes to those approaches, but I have a feeling that we're getting somewhere very exciting, and I'm pretty pumped to see where it ends up. Next, we have Black Sheep, which is right behind me here. I managed to chip away at the center details of this piece, which were the very blue lake with the very orange sunset to just match up with the complementary color scheme I have of the rest of the piece. And I went in with a little bit of an experimental state of mind because I'm somewhat fresh to watercolor. I think last year's the first time I ever touched watercolor. And I used masking fluid in a ruling pen to apply on the subjects of the lake to make sure that the darker like Payne's gray and blue wash that I used for the water itself didn't contaminate the subjects. And it worked out very well. After I painted the very blue lake, I removed the mask and then I went back in with graphite and some more watercolor for, you know, little elements, colorful little elements. And I rendered it, and when I was finished I realized, you know, this is just not quite dark enough. So I decided to go ahead and just brush a layer of graphite on top of everything and, you know, bring down those midtones and highlights just a bit. And I did that by inventing something new! Yay! This is a graphite powder bucket, I guess you could call it. I jammed the skewer right through the center of the thing because when you pick up the graphite with a brush, it's too much. And if you just apply it right to the paper, it'll clump up and it's just a very uneven application. We don't have any time for uneven applications in here, okay? So you can dip the brushes into the graphite at the bottom and then just kind of brush off the excess on the skewer. And it's tall enough so that the dust does not contaminate your entire workstation. So very simple idea, but you just never know when new little tools are gonna just appear just out of necessity. So yet another reason why I'm very excited this month. So I did that to the lake and then I went back into it and rendered it over one more time, maybe just erased a couple of things for some highlights here and there, but ultimately I think it ended up looking pretty rad. And I then went into the sunset just above it very apprehensively because, you know, again, I'm pretty fresh when it comes to watercolor and it was a pretty major section that I could very well f*** up. So I decided to take it very slowly and build up those layers a little bit at a time. And eventually we had enough orange stacked up to where I could then add that layer of graphite with that same exact brush technique that I was describing before. And then I just erased a little bit, added a little moon over in the top left by the bird, and called that a day. So that section is finished now. All that really needs to be spruced up is the very bottom, right below the lake, and kind of leading up into the tree on the right. But regardless, not very much to do. I also have to go ahead and freshen up the eye, believe it or not. The eye just doesn't even have any eyelashes. Yet there are reflections of eyelashes in the eye itself. Go figure. So hey, we're gonna have to fix that, aren't we? And I think this creature that is this entire piece has a couple of horns on the back of his head. So I did a little doodle on Procreate on my iPad just as a little mock-up of what it's gonna look like, and I think I got a pretty decent idea. So other than that, I think that piece is finished. I'm not sure how many hours I need to go in and fix things up, but I think that it shouldn't be too long. Let's keep our fingers crossed. I made it a goal to have that piece done by October, but obviously we're about to hit a week of that goal not being accomplished. And that's okay, because it's uncharted waters where I'm navigating here when it comes to my approach of making these things, especially on pieces that are so large, which is kind of funny how that's when I decide to get the most experimental, when I'm invested so greatly into projects that take me hundreds of hours to do. Not sure why that is, it's just how I work. So yeah. And once Black Sheep is put aside, I'll be able to really truly hop into the third of 7 of the 7 Deadlies series, which will be Greed. First one was Envy in 2012, second one was Gluttony in 2016, and now I would like to have Greed finished in 2021. So that's the newest goal here. First, Black Sheep, and then I have to tie up a couple of other loose ends in the studio, like making original prints. So this is one of the original prints, or it will be an original print once I mount it to a board. This is just a paper print on matte paper of one of my pieces called 23 Nights in a Dream, and I think they look pretty good. What I'm gonna do is score the very perimeter of the entire print and rip the edges so that they're deckled, and then once that's done, I'm going to paint boards that are, this is 8.5 by 11, so I'll probably go ahead and do something like 11 by 14 inch boards with like a crackle effect of some sort, and then I'm going to adhere these permanently to the boards and then wire those boards for hanging. So it'll really be just like an original piece of art because each and every one of them will be different. Each and every one of these pieces will get its own dedicated amount of time from myself, and whoever owns them can be secure in the fact that their original print is like no other. So that's something that I've been thinking about for quite some time, and I think it's about time that I executed on that whole idea. So that's what I'm working on here in the studio nowadays. Thank you, as always, for joining me, and I'll be talking to you very soon. Okay, I think that was pretty good. Man, someone's dog is going nuts. What else is there to talk about, really? I mean, I should do more vlogs. What do you think? Should I do more vlogs? Like hey everybody, how's it going? How we doing over here, huh? I feel like I want to show off the studio in like a little bit of a different angle, but you know, I kind of like the stationary shot as well. Maybe people should just let me know what they think. Might be a good idea. Okay, goodbye.